A child survives a plane crash that takes hundreds of lives. Years later, he can see the moment people will die. But every life he saves comes at a deadly price. Because fate always collects its debt, and love will test how far he's willing to pay. The film starts with a painful accident. A plane has just crashed. The destroyed debris is scattered everywhere, and the number of dead people is in the hundreds. But luckily, a small child named Shin survives and begins searching for his mom and dad, who are probably dead. Meanwhile, he hears the voice of a girl asking for help. But Shin is too small to understand what to do, and then a large piece of the plane falls on that girl. It isn't shown whether she's dead or alive. The scene then shifts to a few years later, where we see Shin, now grown up and working at a car garage. Shin's boss, the garage owner, treats him like his own son, and Shin sees a reflection of his father in him because his real parents died in that accident. The garage owner is soon going to open another garage, and he wants Shin to become its manager. But Shin refuses the offer, feeling he's not ready for such a responsibility yet. The owner still gives him time to think about it. The owner's daughter also tries to convince Shin because she believes he's the perfect person for the job. However, another worker at the garage becomes angry. He's always been jealous of Shin because the owner gives Shin more importance in every task. He often vents his anger by harassing Shin. Even today, he bullies him, pushes him, and walks away, breaking Shin's phone in the process. After finishing work, Shin goes to a nearby shop to get his phone repaired. There, he meets a worker girl named Ao. Shin tells her that his phone is broken and asks her to fix it. Ao says it's an old model and hard to repair because parts aren't easily available, but somehow she manages to fix it. That night, as Shin looks at his phone, he keeps remembering Ao. The next day, he takes the metro to work. While standing there, he suddenly notices the hands of a man beside him begin to disappear. We then realize Shin gained a mysterious power from the plane crash, the ability to see people's futures, especially their deaths. The man's disappearing hands prove he's going to die. But Shin can't do anything, so he goes to work as usual. There, the owner's daughter once again tries to persuade him to become the manager. But Shin gives no clear answer. That night, while passing by the same mobile shop, Shin's eyes still search for Ao. Meanwhile, a stranger bumps into him and walks away, and Shin notices that her body is also disappearing. He starts following her, wondering what's going to happen. After walking some distance, a car suddenly hits the woman and kills her instantly. Shin regrets deeply that he couldn't save her. The next day, he asks the owner's daughter, "If you had the power to see people's futures and know when they're going to die, what would you do?" She replies, "That's not a power. It's a curse." I wouldn't want it. Later, Shin notices his phone is damaged again, so he goes back to Ao to get it repaired. But this time, he's shocked to see Ao's hands are disappearing too. Determined to save her, Shin calls Ao after work and asks her to meet him. Ao hesitates at first but agrees to meet at a coffee shop. When she arrives, Shin sees her hands have returned to normal, and he feels relieved. Ao asks why he called her there. Shin tells her he can see the future, but fears she won't believe him. So he apologizes and leaves. On his way home, he suddenly feels a sharp pain in his chest, but manages to reach home safely. The next day, filled with confidence, Shin tells the owner that he's ready to become the manager. He works late into the night at the garage when Ao comes to meet him. Shin is surprised. Ao tells him she got his address from the store. She came because she had something important to say. Shin offers her coffee. Ao shows him a newspaper explaining that there was a factory explosion near her store the night before, and many people died in the attack. She says she could have been one of them because she passes that route every night, but Shin saved her. She remembers what he said about seeing the future, and she thanks him. Shin laughs it off humbly. The next day, when the owner's daughter arrives at the garage, she realizes someone visited last night. Shin tells her the truth honestly. She feels happy, knowing this is the first time Shin has made a real friend, because until now, he never let anyone get close. We then see a small flashback. A girl once worked at the garage who liked Shin, but he never noticed her, so she got involved with a rich customer and left the garage forever. The story returns to the present, where the owner's angry shouting is heard. He's scolding the jealous worker for taking a customer's car without permission. Instead of apologizing, the worker blames Shin. The owner gets furious and hits the worker. The worker retaliates, striking the owner. In anger, the owner punches him back and fires him from the job. As the worker leaves, Shin suddenly notices the owner's hands disappearing, a sign that his life is in danger. Because Shin sees him as a father figure, he decides to save him. He invites the owner to dinner after work. The owner agrees and they walk toward the restaurant. But Shin's eyes stay alert to every movement around them. From the shadows, the jealous worker suddenly appears, holding an iron rod to attack the owner. Shin quickly steps in and saves him. The owner survives, but Shin suffers a heart attack and collapses. He wakes up in a hospital where the owner's daughter tells him that her father has forgiven the worker after he confessed his mistake. The doctor examines Shin and says the heart attack might have been caused by stress. Just then, Shin sees a little girl in the hallway. Her body is disappearing. When he tries to follow her, the doctor stops him and asks, "Did you see that girl disappearing too?" Later, the doctor takes Shin to the hospital rooftop. There, he reveals that he also has this ability called the Fortune Eye, the same as the film's title. He tells Shin, "We're ordinary people, not gods. We have no right to interfere with fate. If we try to change someone's destiny, it could backfire and cost our own lives. That's probably why you had the heart attack." Shin listens silently and reflects on his words. The next day, Shin calls Ao to meet him and proposes to her. Ao leaves without giving an answer, but the following day, she agrees, and they begin dating. Their bond grows deeper each day. Meanwhile, the jealous worker returns, asking the owner for his job back. Shin recommends him, and the owner rehired him. The man thanks both of them sincerely. The next day, Shin gets 2 rings made, one for himself and one for Ao. He also visits the hospital for a checkup, where the doctor warns him that another heart attack could be fatal. Later, at the garage, a customer arrives to repair his car. He happens to be the same rich man who once dated the girl that left the garage. Shin asks about her, but the man insults her and mocks Shin. Shin remains silent. The next day, when the man comes to pick up his car, Shin notices that his body is disappearing, meaning he's about to die. But this time, Shin decides not to intervene. A few days later, Shin attends the man's funeral. He sees the man's little daughter crying for her father. Shin feels deep sorrow and remembers the girl from the plane crash he couldn't save. The next day, Shin sits sadly in a park where some children are playing with their teacher. A little girl approaches him to ask for her ball, but suddenly, her body starts disappearing. Then, the other children and even the teacher begin to vanish too. Panicked, Shin checks the hands of all the children, but the teacher misunderstands, thinking he's doing something inappropriate, and rushes away with the kids. A school letter falls from her hand. It says the children are going on a trip by train. Shin realizes something terrible is about to happen. The next day, he goes to the station, where he sees several passengers disappearing in the same way. He understands the train leaving at 7:30 the next morning will meet with an accident. He also remembers that Ao travels by the same train, meaning her life is in danger too. That night, Shin rushes to Ao's house, relieved to find her safe. To protect her, he asks Ao to go on a 3-day trip with him. She hesitates but eventually agrees. However, Shin also wants to save the children and other passengers. He calls the school to cancel the trip, but the school refuses without a valid reason. That evening, Shin writes a heartfelt letter to Ao, telling her everything about the future he's seen, about the train, and how deeply he loves her. But his plan falls apart the next morning when Ao messages him saying her co-worker is sick, so she must go to the store. Panicked, Shin runs out of the house, but the police are waiting outside. The teacher has filed a complaint, accusing him of harassing the children. To save Ao, Shin escapes from the police and rushes to the station. There, he sees Ao already boarding the train. He takes a taxi to reach the next station ahead of her train. When he arrives, he notices construction work happening nearby. He realizes a large container from the construction site will soon fall onto the tracks, causing the train's destruction. Without hesitation, Shin stands in front of the train holding a smoke candle. Ao, seated in the coach just behind the engine, sees him and tells the driver to stop. The driver hits the brakes immediately. The next moment, the train derails slightly, but stops safely. Shin has prevented the disaster and saved everyone's lives. Ao rushes out of the train and sees Shin sitting weakly on the tracks. When she reaches him, she breaks down crying, because Shin has sacrificed his life to save her and the others. At Shin's funeral, Ao learns she's the only girl Shin ever grew close to. This realization makes her even more emotional. In the final reveal, we learn Ao is the same girl Shin saw during the plane crash, the one who had asked him for help. Shin had actually saved her back then, but the trauma of the crash made him forget. It's also revealed that Ao had the same ability, the Fortune Eye, and she had been searching for Shin ever since. That's why when Shin first reacted to her disappearing hands, Ao realized he was that boy from her past. She also intentionally boarded the train because she had seen Shin's fate, that he would die. So, she decided to risk her own life to save him, but Shin sacrificed himself to save her instead. In the final scene, Ao reads Shin's letter, crying as she wears the rings he made for them. She closes her eyes, feeling his presence, and with that, the beautiful yet tragic story of Fortune Eye comes to an end.